welcome to Zulu episode 8. I am your host, Alan, and today I am joined by my co-host, Astrology Sucks. Woo! Hi, hello everybody. Max.
We here.
And our boy Shane, aka Toph. How we doing, Shane? And answer my question, Shane. How are we doing?
We're doing good. Doing pretty good, bud.
Awesome. So look, we're on episode 8, and this is a special kind of episode. This is the astrology episode, and we are intellectually challenging ourselves. So I thought that we would play a challenging song here today. This is the first time that this song is going to be heard by anybody. This is a special release, and just to give a little backstory about what this song is, because it's a very brave song, and a trigger warning ahead of time before we listen to the song for the audience. So basically, Shane is a rapper, you know, he's good with the bars and the rhymes and all that stuff. And he went, just like any other day, to the studio to record music. And when he had went to the studio, I'm sorry, it's a serious topic. His engineer was trying to touch him inappropriately.
Fuck that guy.
And after that, Shane made this song. So we're going to be silent. And this is a Zulu cast first. We're opening with a release. You know, if y'all want us to do this, pay us. We're not cheap. I'm telling you, it's going to be thousands of dollars for this kind of exposure. But right now, right here, we're going to do this for our boy Shane. This is a special Shane release. Let's play it.
Cause I've been working all day, all night. I've been working all day, all night. I'm in that studio, I'm putting up a fight. Cause I've been working, y'all. Your boy 2 up in the building. Hands up if y'all be feeling. We's about to keep it real, and sorry Halo hits, but this be yo beat that I be killing, bro. Understand how to go. I ain't riding in no 2 though. 16 and I be spitting all this truth, bro. Homie cop this project if you know. Tell me what's been happening. I've been laughing at this crap, man. Not to be rude, but I think this game is lacking. It's okay, cause we about to bring it back, man. No joking up on that, man. You whack words like a Pac-Man. I've been working all day, all night.
Boy was
Why are
putting
you
up a
chuckling,
fight.
man? Why are you chuckling, bro? This is a real.
It's real bars.
It's that real hip hop, man.
It's that
Kid-
real
kid- the
hip-hop.
kids need this these days, man.
Okay. You said you were in the studio all day, all night, and you were in there putting up a fight.
Yeah.
Explain those lyrics to me, because I think this would be inspiring to some survivors.
You know, man, it was an average day where I just went in the studio and. You know, can we just move on and talk about astrology? There's a little much to talk about.
This is I feel like this almost could be deserving of itself if its own.
It's its own episode. Yeah.
It's a lot to unpack. Maybe we could do that for like during Shane's problems.
That's going to be the post show, guys. On every platform, you can catch the Zulu Cast post show. We've done like 20 of them so far. And next we'll
They
do
go crazy.
next we'll do the Shane allegations. Okay.
Whoa.
We are here to talk about space racism today. We are here to talk about astrology.
Boo.
Oh, okay, that answers my question. I was gonna ask, how do we feel about astrology, guys?
Fuck it.
Okay.
No,
Shane?
actually, I'm kind of kidding. I'm really like honestly indifferent to it. Like, I mean, I don't feel super passionately on it, but I mean, I think it's probably mostly bullshit and fuck astrology. Boo.
It's a very, to me, it's a very confusing philosophy that people hold. And yeah, I don't think it's written in a lot of, I think it's written in a lot of emotion. I don't know if it's driven by a lot of truth.
But how, Shane?
yeah. What
How
do
is
you
there
mean,
emotion
Shane?
in
What
the
do you mean?
stars?
What are you trying to say?
Yeah.
I'm trying to say to each their own. No, it's not for me.
Okay.
But teach their own.
One could say that God guy, he's kind of, emotional.
Yeah.
You
A lot of
know?
emotion. He kind of got mad and flooded the world, Shade. So
Yeah,
let's
that
not even
kinda
get started
happened.
on. Let's not even get me started on Christian indoctrination.
Don't
brother.
talk about
I
emotions.
knew that was coming.
Okay. But Shane, do you believe everything is connected?
Do I believe everything is connected?
Yes, sir.
It depends what you mean by that. That statement in of itself is so vague.
Do you think everything is connected? Don't you think there's something bigger than you?
Yeah.
What do you think that is?
God.
Our Lord and
How do you
Savior
know it's not the
Jesus
universe?
Christ.
How do you know it's God? How do you know it's God? How do you know it's not the universe? How do you know?
Because I don't perceive the universe to hold power.
Oh, you don't.
He sees
It's
as
a very
God thing
negative
as
way of
God
looking at
created.
it.
No, whoa. I just
That's kind of narcissistic. You don't think the universe has power, Shane. So what are you trying to say?
I'm trying to say
Sounds
I
like a
don't.
typical Scorpio to me.
Yeah, that sounds like.
Oh my gosh, that's a typical Scorpio. Max, you're a Scorpio.
I
What are
know,
you
but
talking-
a Scorpio can recognize other Scorpio traits, right? Like, isn't that how that works?
Look, bro.
We on the
I'm
same
saying
vibe.
is- all I'm saying is, I don't. I understand when people say they're giving things to the universe and stuff. I don't think people actually think
Manifesting.
the universe is walking around, like grabbing people's little things that they've given and handing it to other
You
people.
know, Shane,
Okay,
I'm gonna
okay.
manifest that you see the light of the universe.
You know what?
Let's
maybe
put
I
it this
will.
way,
If it's the
because
truth,
now-
I want to see it.
Now you're being political, so let's put it this way. Let's put it this way.
Yeah.
As a follower of Christ, you believe in commandments, okay? As a follower of astrology, I believe in universal laws. And I think that you would agree that these universal laws are true even outside the context of your religion. Like, wouldn't you say it's true that love conquers all, Shane?
Yeah.
Okay, so we agreed that there's universal things that are true, okay? And in that sense, we agreed that things are connected. So as everything is connected, why is it hyperbolic to assume that you could be born on a certain day and that day could be an indication of traits that you're destined to have? Why is it foolish to assume that? I don't get it. I don't get it.
I'm sorry,
buddy.
I'm not trying to laugh at you.
You're so sure astrology is not real, so you explain it to me.
I never said that. I just
Go
said I
ahead.
think it's
Explain
a
it.
really weird
Explain it.
philosophy.
Explain it. You're dodging the question. Explain it.
I,
Typical Scorpio behavior.
The
yeah, you know what?
Capologian fallacy. Go on.
Yeah, pure Capologian fallacy I'm pulling right now. No, I just, it's just, I don't think that's how personality traits are formed.
Yeah, but how do you know it's not?
Yeah, what makes you so sure of that?
Because I have yet to meet somebody who perfectly fits their astrological chart or astrological
I mean,
behaviors.
it's already proven that space has an effect on you. Like the moon, right? It's been proven that the moon has an effect on water cycles and things like that. And as humans, we're actually like mostly
made.
water. Yeah, we're like 70 to 80% water. Okay, so if the moon affects water and we're basically water, wouldn't the moon affect us?
So what you just did is logical, and it's a sound argument, but it's not a sufficient argument.
Yeah, Shane.
And it's
Why
not.
not?
Why do
Why
the
not?
old people at my work act
Wait.
different when there's a full moon? Explain that, Shane. Explain that.
Because they're werewolves.
No,
Let me tell you,
seriously,
let me-
they get more like the people with dementia get more confused and really like bad when there's a full moon. Explain that, Shane. Explain that.
When Mercury was in retrograde, my bitch was acting crazy.
I was
bro.
in my feels. I was in my feels.
Explain it, Shade.
Explain it right
We're
now.
70%. We're
You know what?
70% water. The moon acts on water, so the moon acts on us, right?
Not necessarily.
Shane,
Why
I
not?
want the answers now.
I don't have the answers.
Wait a minute. You say not necessarily. Explain your position.
So first of all,
If it's
only
not true, you should be
60%
able to
of humans is water. Only 60%.
Okay, 60, 70%, you get the idea. Like, that's 60% is a large chunk of water in us. Enough to,
Yeah.
like, have an effect, correct?
So if you come up and poke me, right, with like a sharp object, I'll actually explode and just water will come out of my body. You know that, right?
I know that guy Allen's probably not 60% water. That guy needs to hydrate himself.
So no, water will come out. I think it'll be blood first, then water. What blood will come out?
I'm about 20-30% water.
Whoa, bro, you need to get that. You need to drink some water.
That's why, like, as an Aries, I'm emotional,
Oh, that makes
but
sense.
I'm not super. You get
I
it? 'Cause,
totally
like,
see that for you.
I'm not that much water. Do you know what I mean?
Period.
Okay, Shane. Seriously though, quit dancing around the question.
Yeah, Shane,
What
you're
question am I
dodging it.
dancing around, yo? I don't have the. I don't. But that I don't per. So like I said, that's a sound and logical argument. But that's not proof. It's what you've just said is not. All you've done is what you did is equivalent to me saying I saw one dog who was blue, so therefore I perceive all dogs to be blue. That's a logical conclusion based on the evidence, but it doesn't make it true.
I don't know, buddy. It sounds like you're doing a bunch of tap dancing to defend your homosexuality bashing sky daddy.
I heard Shane earlier. He was going on
You know
a
what?
rant. A long rant, guys.
Yeah, you were saying
I
some
did
crazy
not
stuff
go on
before
a
the
rant. I did
podcast
not
opened
go
up,
on a
buddy.
rant.
Says
I
some
did not go on a
crazy
rant.
stuff, buddy.
Yeah. We should just do a whole podcast about the crazy shit you were saying. We need.
I know you're not talking. You were talking pretty crazy too, Mr. Aries over there. Talking
Yeah,
pretty
all right.
crazy about.
I mean,
overworld
okay, but
dementia.
that's his Aries energy.
Oh, so it's excusable.
Yeah, I mean, Mercury's in retrograde.
Okay, y'all. Hold on. Hold on. I think now is the time I do it. And we need to have a talk about your religion, buddy.
Yeah, we need to have an intervention.
There's no way, Shane, and in 2022, you still believe in God. Now, if God was real, why would he let COVID happen?
There's no way that in 2020 people are still believing in Babylonian
Okay.
space racism.
My
Shane.
grandmother died in my arms because of COVID.
Shane, the gas
Just tell me God's
prices.
real.
Are you trying to tell me that God would let gas prices get to $5? Are you kidding me?
So what's your explanation? That the stars did it?
No, I'm saying
The universe
it's
did
foolish
it?
in 2022 that you still believe in
that
God.
position makes more sense, right? Because God has like a presumed sense of morality because we like at
So
least
does the
when we,
universe.
like,
No. In astrology,
No, it
the
doesn't.
universe
No,
does
it doesn't.
too. Because
No, it doesn't.
yes,
No,
it
it
does.
doesn't.
I'll
No,
tell
it
you
doesn't.
exactly
No, it
why.
doesn't. The universe
I
is
just had to
neutral.
talk
The
about this
universe is
with my
neutral. The universe
astrology
is
friend.
neutral. The universe is neutral.
No, it's not. The universe
Sounds
is not
toxic.
Universe is
neutral.
neutral.
Because
Sounds
the idea is that if you put positive energy into the universe will give that positive energy back.
Yeah, but
The
if you put
problem with
negative
Scorpio
No,
energy,
here's the thing. The universe has a moral claim on energy, therefore being positive and negative energy. And I don't just mean like your charge on a battery. Positive meaning good, negative mening bad.
I'm just
That's the
tuning you
way
out
that
at this
astrology
point.
people presume it. Which
just
is so
tuning you out at this
crazy.
point.
That don't make no sense.
With somebody talking, he sounds just like a Scorpio. And let me tell you, I watched The Rock in Scorpio King when he was a Scorpio.
You mean
and
Scorpion?
He acted just like Shane is acting right now.
I think that's why Drake's his favorite artist. Drake is.
So
also
I
a
I do
Scorpio.
what? I've never said that.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Max is Scorpio too. How-
Drake's my favorite artist. What can I say? I'm sorry.
Oh gosh. And if that's the
Let me
case,
tell
then
you,
Alan is
my-
acting just like the musician Aries because he's an Aries, and they're just they're twinsies.
It makes a lot of sense. It makes a ton.
No,
My-
it doesn't.
My ex was a Leo, and that's why I cheated on her. She had it coming. She had it coming.
She did radiate Leo energy.
You know what? I'm so wrong. I'm sorry. All my beliefs are wrong. Astrology is correct.
Okay, let's
Wow, that's a W already.
look. I don't even want to entertain astrology, guys. That's why all of the other podcasts previously to this had serious tones to them. We're going to do episodes about Rasputin, and I'm going to come with a very focused present energy. Let me break the facade. Let me break kayfabe for a second.
Whoa.
Astrology is so ridiculous that I feel like it's pointless that I talk about it, y'all. Like, you know what would be a better episode? If I just got up right now and pissed and you just had that
That's-
sound going on, and we talked about it for 2 minutes, I feel like there's more to talk about there than astrology. That deserves
That's
more
just
time
what
than
an
astrology.
Aries would say.
Okay, so we're going to go into the section we delve in to why we don't fuck with astrology. I'm going to try to make this quick. And this is all going to be shit that people who believe in astrology have heard. And they're going to say like, well, I've debunked these statements. You know, I've already came up with rebuttals for this. So this isn't anything new. Why don't you believe in astrology? And I'm going to, at the end of this rant, if I don't forget, because I might forget, you know, I'm going to tell them why they still believe it. I'm going to tell them what incentivizes them to believe in this nonsense, because I would not put the prestigious title of spiritual upon the people who believe in astrology. I'd call them astral. I'd call them stuck in desire. I'd call them like I hate this term because this sounds like some shit, like this sounds like we're talking about like kids in like the local punk scene, but they're posers, bruh. They're fucking posers, bruh. So the first reason that I don't like astrology is the vagueness. All of these traits are vague. Like they'll say you're loyal or you're sensitive. But if we focused on the right way of somebody's personality, we could ascribe those traits to them. Like you could say Max is sensitive, right? And we'll be like, oh, it's so true. Max is
What a
sensitive.
Scorpio.
Greek is sensitive, you know. Alan is sensitive. You know, people don't think Alan's sensitive, but he actually has that side of him that you haven't seen. That da 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 da. So these traits exist in most people. Like these traits are going to exist in most people. The difference is degree, right? And then you can make up those degrees by instilling fucking sun charts in them and being like, oh, he's not sensitive, but he's an Aquarius moon, so he just like tries not to look sensitive, and he tries to look like a Gemini. That's what, like that you could describe that shit. The entire foundation of believing astrology is based on conceivability. And here's what I mean. It's the same sort of belief system that a conspiracy theorist has. It's conceivability. Let me slow down to say this. Conceivability equates to truth. That's what people who believe in astrology are all about. You know how conspiracy theorists are about, like all of their arguments are like, so it's already proven, we already know that George Bush did blank. So since George Bush did blank, do you really think he didn't do blank? And the thing that they're saying makes sense. So people who are gullible are like, oh, and people who have some sort of incentive to believe in the conspiracy theory say, oh, that does make sense. It's true. But just because something makes sense doesn't mean it's true. Like, in my life, there's been tons of times where I've been like, I have this problem, and the reason I have this problem is because of this thing. And then I work on that framework, and as I'm like on the journey, utilizing a certain framework to solve a problem, I realized that I was using the wrong framework because it made sense. Like, say for example, you want to be happier. The baseline advice is just be positive. Or say you want to socialize with somebody. The baseline advice is be yourself. And those, like, wouldn't that make sense? Like, oh, you're nervous around people, so just be yourself. You know, like stop worrying about expectations, just being yourself, and that'll meet your goal. Is that really true in actuality? No, because the person that you're talking to has certain tastes, and you have to fit those tastes in order to connect with the person. So you can't just sit, be yourself, not extend yourself at all, and not interact with other people, and you'll socialize properly and successfully. In the same way, you can't just think positive things and think you're going to be happy, because some traumatic event is going to happen, and then inevitably that voice in your head is going to creep up that's going to say, bruh, like I sat here and did all this thing and then this thing just happened, so really, like, I can sit around and believe whatever I want, but life is still happening to me. It's these sort of frameworks that sound true, and then you waste your time in them, not actually because you live and you learn and you need to fail in order to have a correct framework, but you waste your time with these frameworks and you realize, it made sense, but it wasn't true. In the same way, astrology is conceivable with this sort of like very linear, conceivable, like, you would have to be incentivized to believe them, sort of belief systems like we're mostly water and the moon is bad water, so obviously astrology is real. Like it's under the same framework. So first of all, the reason that I hate it is because it's based off of this conceivability equates to truth thing. And I was going to acknowledge, like the arguments for astrology. I feel like I've already acknowledged them. And people are going to comment. They're going to say more. They're going to be like, but there's sun charts. But there's da-da-da-da. Sun charts exist to fill in the gaps, bruh. That's all it does. Because you could say, oh, as an Aries, it says you're sensitive. And you're not actually, like, sensitive. Like, obviously, you have emotions. But you're not somebody that I would necessarily call sensitive. And then they'll bring up the fucking chart, which could, it could rationalize why you do or do not have any of those things. So they want it to be true. They're driven for it to be true. Like they're incentivized for it to be true. So why would they be incentivized for it to be true? Now this is going to be harder for me to explain. I know it intuitively, but it's so it's so distinct what I'm trying to explain. Like it's so subtle what I'm trying to explain that I might not explain it correctly the first time. But here's what I've noticed. And people who say that they enjoy astrology is that they have and I believe in archetypes, so I am going to go as far as to say the type of person who believes in astrology is an archetype, and they believe in it. First of all, they deeply believe in self-image because they equate self-image with personality. And we're going to go explain why MBTI is not the same as astrology as people who support MBTI and engage with MBTI. We're going to go as far as to explain it. But I'm losing my track. It's so fucking bizarre. What was I talking about? What was I just saying?
I don't even remember. Oh, you said you were talking about how you were like it's gonna be hard for you to explain.
Yeah. Basically, to get on that point, it's like, okay, yeah, personality, self-image. They conflate personality with self-image. So to actually describe who somebody is at their center, you would explain it as the way that they filter the world across time and like which parts of them rise to the surface, how often those things rise to the surface, and like distinctly how they perceive the world and maybe what their values are and what their propensity for a certain value system is. And through that, you would describe them. And people who support astrology would say, well, like, it does it. And it's like, it does it in the laziest way possible. Because if you say, like, that person's loyal is a good way to describe, like, personality, then that's a very shallow way of understanding who somebody is. And any archetype isn't going to do a good job of describing an individual. And that's something that I emphasize with astrology followers on, is people that would say, I don't believe in astrology because I don't like being put in a box. Like, everything's going to have a direction, and a direction isn't the same thing as a box, right? So, like, it's going to go in a certain direction, but saying somebody is loyal is a very lazy direction to put something in. So, and also, like, describing anybody as something as, like, loyal, it's, like, such, like, a shallow perception of who that person is. And that's why, like, I really, like, think, as I've gotten more into psychology, I realize even a lot of the people who are interested in psychology are interested on an academic level, and they don't see human beings as tangible, and they don't try to understand human nature on a day-to-day, like, thing. So the way that they understand human nature is by vocabulary, and it gives them a detached sense of humanity when they're right in front of a person, and thus it makes them harder for them to actually understand the person. And I think, like, from that experience, I'm like, understanding human nature is a very, like, difficult thing to do. So you maybe have to be of a certain intelligence, not to sound like elitist, right? There's other things that could go into it, like you being in the right, like, energetic position and to like be open to understanding something, or being open enough to or like having enough leftover space to understand something. There's other things, but I think, like, it's very feasible from my perception that you have to be of a certain intelligence level to understand astrology. And with the amount of people that understand that, or you have to be of a certain intelligence level to understand human nature. And with the amount of people that engage with astrology who say they could read humans, already from there I'm like, that's not it. Like, that already rubs me the wrong way. So, like, of course, all of these fucking people who engage with astrology think they're so fucking smart that they figured out human nature. It's the goddamn Dunning-Kruger effect. They're not smart. Like, they're not smart enough to realize how not smart they are. And thus, they're not smart enough to realize how genuinely complex human nature is and how off base they are with how they interpret human nature, because they're of this thing of conceivability equates to truth, and they're just like, oh, like, they're loyal. Like, yeah, they've been friends with me for 3 years. Yeah, they're loyal. And, like, that's the direction from how they understand it. So it's like, yeah, I think it's just very, very fucking vague. And that would be my first contention to it. Anybody want to add anything to that point?
I got nothing, Max.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely, like, what astrology banks on is, like, vagueness. Like, you could say somebody's loyal, but, like, what does that, like, okay, like you were just saying, oh, that person's been friends with me for 3 years, they're loyal, but that doesn't really make somebody loyal. Like, I don't know, there's a lot more that goes into it, and it's ignoring the complexities of that. So, I think you're right in the sense that, yeah, it's just really, really, it's vague as fuck.
Super vague.
All right, I'm writing something. Writing down the two other arguments I want to get in.
That's Aries
Aries has to
behavior.
write down his thoughts.
Okay. Because it's so subtle to explain this. People are so engaged in it. And they're engaged in it because there's something within them that is incentivized to believe it. So I have to write these down because I'm going to branch in so many directions trying to explain how cap astrology is that if I don't write it down, I'm going to forget. The next thing I'll say is, from what I've seen, most of the people who are followers of astrology quite literally have a tiny focus group for how they understand astrology to be true. Like, you ask somebody, what do they think of Leos? And they're like, oh, my ex was a Leo, so da-da-da-da. And you guys know this.
Yeah, it happens all the time. Like, they're like, oh my god, my ex was, and they like go in. Yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah, I'll never date Leos again because my ex was a Leo and they could be blah, blah, blah.
Isn't it crazy how tied in? Like, okay, so what I see a lot with astrology is that it's like almost interlinked with relationship compatibility. Like, people like live their life based on like, oh, well, he's a Leo, blah blah blah. I'm not gonna. It's like, it literally, like, for some people, that's all astrology is to them. Is like, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like the way, so most of the time when they say my ex was a Leo and they were toxic, the things that they describe of that person, it's usually not, it's like monstrous behavior. Now, sometimes it is, some Leos could really be toxic, but it's usually not monstrous behavior. It's typical things that come up as problems in relationships. And for them to dislike Leos because the relationship doesn't work out, that gives you an indication on what one of their incentivizations are to believe in astrology. So I don't think people who believe in astrology are spiritual, and I'm going to get to that. But just to touch on it real quick, spirituality is moving with life. It is subtle progression. It is resonating with life itself and working based upon that. And I see a lot of resistance in astrology because huge chunks of people literally use it primarily to understand relationships. First of all, the fact that they're so engaged in relationships indicates that they're codependent. And it's like, if you really love the world so much, wouldn't you work with the laws of the world? The world is showing you, hey, stop being addicted to relationships. Stop being addicted to validation. It's not working for you. It's fucking you up mentally. Like, learn to flow with the universe. And they're literally resisting the universe and using astrology to resist the universe. So it's like, and I keep on saying the universe because they use, quote unquote, the universe to sound like deep and sound spiritual when they defend it. And it's like, okay, so the universe is telling you this shit isn't working out, right? And instead of being like, okay, I'm going to listen to the universe, I'm going to stop, they work with astrology. And astrology is connected to desire, at least in the way that they see it, because it's like they're literally using it to map out their ideal partner. They're using it to validate the problem that they already had in codependence. And instead of working out of that, they're trying to fulfill their ideal. It's also why I don't fuck with with witchcraft, because witchcraft, like, it has an NPC inspired element to it, where it's like your life is gonna look like this, or your life is gonna be bad, and it kind of makes it look like this thing is just gonna happen to you. And that's also another reason I don't think they're spiritual, is because instead of engaging with life, they look at it like something that's just happening to them. They're so detached from it. That's why, so like, I'm like, really, if you were spiritual, you wouldn't be fucking depressed, bro. Because and I'm not saying like you can't be spiritual and depressed. I'm saying like you wouldn't go so long being depressed without taking active measures to go against it and actually heal for real. Because like the world is so abundant that for you to not be coincided with it, it's something that you're resisting, right? Like fucking obviously. So like a lot of the ways that they look at it is just a framework for them to have life look the way they want it to look. And it's all appearance based. It's narcissism. Like witchcraft, it's fucking narcissism, bro. Like pagans, and we'll probably do an episode on this, but people who are into paganism, people who are into witchcraft generally operate around a low energy because it's all fucking self-image induced, and they like to say that they're connected to these spiritual truths while they don't actually engage with life. That's why they're the only people who could be spiritual, who can call themselves quote unquote spiritual and still be negative as fuck. It's like, how many people do I know who call themselves spiritual, who like astrology, who shit talk people all the time and gossip and always get into drama and shit? It's like, how could you be spiritual and still engage in that? And then the way that they rationalize it is like, well, everybody does it. And when they say that, the key element there is permissiveness. They're being permissive to themselves. So go deeper. Why would they be permissive? Because they're hedonist. So if we follow the trail for many of the people who like astrology, the reason that they like it is pure hedonism. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. They don't have to work with life. It makes them feel smart and makes them feel like they understand human nature by giving them like touches of conceivability. It makes it look like it works with their fucking codependency framework. Like, because a lot of the ways that they use it isn't to understand. Like MBTI is like, how does this person process the world? And a lot of like the terminology that's described in astrology more so describes how somebody would interact with you, doesn't it? Like they're loyal.
Yeah,
to
it's
you.
less so how like you function. Yeah, 100%. It's more, yeah.
It's not about the person, it's about the correspondence the person would have with you.
Yeah.
So it's totally relationship based. So it's totally codependence based. So it's totally like not getting over something that's a huge problem based. And funny enough, codependence is the next episode. But anyways, like it's so like not coming over a huge problem. It's so calling yourself spiritual without engaging. It's purely motivated by hedonism.
Yeah. I guess I've never really saw the correlation between hedonism and astrology, but like the connection completely makes sense, and that explains like the archetype of the person that's into astrology, you know, is like a lot of them.
I've always thought astrology was kind of hedonistic. I mean, I've always recognized it as this idea of like,
I don't know.
I feel like it's solely for the person. Like it makes a person feel comfortable to the point where it's like, it gives the falsehood of perceiving that you understand the world, but the excuse is that you can engage with it properly. Oh, this is just the way I am. This is just the way I behave. It's like it's
because
it's
so fucking true. Yeah,
it doesn't challenge you at all.
As a Gemini, that's just how I am. That's how we act.
We're very two-sided. Yeah.
It coincides with this worldview that life is just something that happened to you and is just built with these presets and you can't engage.
It's predetermined, yeah.
Permissiveness, hedonism.
Yup.
Yeah, so it's totally not spiritual. So that was my point. Like that was the other point. Is like it's really like detached from spirituality, and it allows yourself to say you're spiritual while not actually being spiritual. Because a lot of spirituality is about like overcoming desire and not being ran by desire.
Yeah.
But you have these. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say there's a lot more discipline with like spirituality. It's yeah.
Yeah, and like what would they say to this? Their contention, because they're motivated by hedonism. They have a personality framework that's motivated by hedonism because they haven't overrode it. Their argument to you right now would be like, yeah, like, oh, there's laws you're supposed to find. That's not true. Like, we don't like religion because it puts you in a box and it says you has to act like this, but it's different for everybody. Not everybody has to do da da da. Fucking like pure permissiveness, don't engage, don't extend energy motivated sort of thoughts.
This has always been and I don't know if you want to move into that now, but this is like my weirdest objection with astrology people is that they want to identify it as spirituality when they give it a sort of. They want to identify as spirituality so it's separate from organized religion because they deem organized religion to be this dictative, oppressive, tell me how to live my life sort of thing. But astrology does the same thing in and of itself. The idea is like it tells you how you are, how you behave, how you act, and it's simply because you're comfortable with that, you're comfortable within your hedonistic nature, that you don't have to grow and change, that but because of that, they don't want to, and they dislike organized religion, and they like the idea of where they are, and they don't want to call it that. They don't care that it's an organized framework of mind. They just want to separate. Like that, it just doesn't make sense. There's still there's ways to study the stars or study or understand your moon's rising and stuff like that within these. It's just as organized as a religion. They just don't want to call it that because then they feel like they have to. Then they feel like it's bad.
But do you okay?
Organized religion.
But then they feel they have to be reverent to something.
Yeah.
Like they have to abide by something. That's really what they like.
But they're already doing that. It's just they're blind to it.
There's a good argument of I don't want to be stuck to something and I don't want to be put in a box. I think that argument has some validity.
Fair.
But a lot of the motivations for them saying it is like, I don't want to have to do the same thing every day. It's basically, I don't want to have to be disciplined. I don't want to have to extend more effort. And I'm not making a conservative argument of get off your fucking ass and da 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 da. But I'm saying like, and I'll get into this as I further my argument, like the universe is indicating to you, do this thing, and it gives you the ideal result. And the ideal result will be told to you because it'll be reflected. And instead of doing that, instead of extending more effort, because they're always thinking about this ideal, and instead of extending like real effort to sustain something and learning habits and systems, they're just trying to get the thing by like it's a very convenient way of seeing life because they're just trying to get the thing by like attracting the thing, aka like just change your beliefs and you'll get the thing rather than having to go through a process of getting the thing. And I do believe that you have to energetically resonate with something to achieve the thing, and that's a whole other argument. So like I get the place they're coming from, but for them it seems to be like, oh, like how could I achieve the thing without having to break my leg to get the thing, really? Like how can I get it without having to extend a bunch of effort, without having to be attached to it? Like I'm not like fanatic about discipline, but being so adverse to discipline indicates a bad relationship with it. I'm going to grab my charger, by the way. I'll be right back.
Totally fine. Yeah, no, I think that nails it on the head of the hedonistic nature of it.
I wanted to ask you guys, do you guys think that like there's like any level of astrology that could just be like fun? Like I don't know, like just like for some people, I don't know. I think people just kind of see it as like a...
people. I feel like have I think I do it with MBTI sometimes, and I would love to hear Alan's response to this when it gets back. But I think there's a comfort, or not more than comfort. I think there's like a coolness about trying to know yourself.
Yeah,
it's a freeingness. So I feel like when people are perceiving to say, "Oh, I better understand why I behave like this, why I do like this," especially in a position where it doesn't have to necessarily, it doesn't give you a task to be better, but it just explains. People find that interesting. Oh, that's why my friend does this. That's why I do that a lot with MBTI, and so I can't wait to get to the part where we talk about why or
how they differ,
or how because this is something I also need to work on, and I think Alan could help me with. But I do understand that there is there's definitely a high energy about trying to know yourself and understand yourself.
I just meant
I
like
think when it becomes permissive is when it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
And astrology in of itself is just permissive of your actions.
I was gonna say like I just think like the people who let astrology like dictate their life and like that's their worldview and shit, like primarily, I think that's when it becomes dangerous. Like I think that there's like a level of like if you're just casual with it and you like check out your horoscope or whatever, or you like I don't know. It's really mainly the people who are like super into it to me that are like, it's just like, nah. Because I think for the most part, it's bullshit. Like, just like getting a fortune cookie. Like, it's bullshit. But it's like, it's kind of like just like a fun thing to do. Like, that's the only thing I'm asking. Like, is like, there is a level to it where it's just kind of like, just, you don't look too far and too deep into it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't care so much if it was like, people took it as seriously as they took a fortune cookie, because I could get it as like a fun thing.
That's more so how I view it.
The sort of like seriousness that they attach to it is why I would formulate any sort of belief system against it. Because I'm not sitting like, I'm not building any sort of argument against fucking fortune cookies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a very different thing. I just, yeah, no.
No, it has a similarity. It parallels in a sense. I'm going to finish up my point about why I don't equate astrology and spirituality, and then we'll pivot because Shane has already mentioned pivoting a couple times. So I think
I'm excited. Those are yeah. But I wanted you to go ahead, finish your thoughts.
Yeah, the last thing that I'll say about it is I have a problem with how people call themselves spiritual and all they try to do is achieve their desires with spirituality. And I think LOA is a cool thing, and I'm not like 100% against achieving your desires. But when you basically come into as a person, you are basically like just born with these drives and born with desires. And to me, because everybody has their own belief of what an adult is, and I mean, that sounds like saying everybody has an opinion. It's not really true, because for a lot of people, what they assume an adult to be is like, it's very universal, and it's shallow, in my opinion. I understand it. It has its validity, but you know what I'm saying? But anyways, like, my thing of what an adult is, it's understanding who you are, understanding your shadow, your weaknesses, being able to keep those on a leash, and achieving your own goals and holding yourself accountable. Like, that's it. And I feel like they get to this point where they understand their desire and they just go for it, and that's it. And that's the way they adopt these belief systems like LOA and astrology and shit. Because a lot of people who believe in LOA, and like, again, I think there's some cool aspects of LOA. I'm actually about to read a book about it. It's dope. Anyways, but there is a bad crowd of it. And I know at least 4 or 5 girls who have texted me and said, how do I manifest a boyfriend? And there's definitely, I've never been on TikTok again, but there's definitely a bunch of TikToks about it. How do I manifest it? Or your partner is coming right now, like that sort of shit. And they call themselves spiritual when they would be more fulfilled. And I would say fulfillment is, like, this is another distinct point. I am against just achieving your desires just to try to achieve your desires. I'm not against feeling good, though, because I think there's sort of like a universal code that coincides with feeling good. Like, I think there's like laws to success, and I believe in the validity of those laws to success. And I think fulfillment coincides with it. And for you to be abundant and for you to be fulfilled, you would be that, at least to be fulfilled and abundant for a sustained period, you would do that by properly creating yourself to coincide with universal law. But I don't think they do that. I think they more so coincide themselves to, they build themselves to coincide with their desires. So it's almost as if they take themselves more seriously than the universe while using a universe as a ploy, saying they understand it, pretending that they're interested in the law when they're just using it to get what they want. Because they're so fucking depressed and needy and frenetic because they crave a partner or they crave life to look a certain way. And instead of being beyond that and building themselves to be beyond that, they build their life just to get that thing. Like LOA, like, oh, I'm gonna be happy just to get what I want. Why don't you just be happy in service? Like, the world is so fucking dope that even if I don't get what I want, this is the shit. I'm happy I'm living this life. Why does it have to come with like, I'm gonna do it to get a boyfriend? Like, oh, it's like I'm gonna cheat universal law to get what I want. I'm gonna play God and I'm going to decide what's really valuable and I'm going to get that rather than coinciding myself with something. And yeah, it's hedonistic. It's I don't understand how you could call something spiritual when it's based on hedonism, low consciousness, conceivability, and desire.
It's like the opposite of spiritual.
None of those things that I would deem spiritual. And I'm not saying like I'm the one who deems things spiritual. This is just my opinion. It's like it's using spirituality as a toy.
Well, yeah, and it's like quite literally like the path of least resistance, like with everything that comes along with it. So like, how is that even spiritual if it's like you're just like choosing the path of least resistance?
Absolutely. There's so many people that follow this and say they're spiritual. Like, basically, if you're sad because you don't have a partner and you're not like working to get over that and you call yourself spiritual, you're not spiritual. And that doesn't apply everywhere. That's like overall a truth. I would say that tends to be true, but I would definitely apply it to a lot of people who enjoy astrology, and I think they enjoy it purely for mental masturbation.
Yeah.
And like a lot of the people I know that are in it, like I was gonna bring up witchcraft and shit because witchcraft is totally like this. Like, oh, I could attach myself with this mystical power to make this thing that I want to happen. Like, really? It's like a fucking witchcraft is basically just playing God, bro. And like, I don't mean this in the way where like people are like kill witches. Like, I'm not like against fucking witches, bro. I'm not like, oh, these witches, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like whatever. I just see it as kind of childish, really. And I still love these people. They're still humans. They're dope. They're amazing, beautiful souls. But like, it's literally just you playing God. Like, oh, I'm gonna make this spell happen to get what I want. It's so you not coinciding yourself with something. It's so based on hedonism. It's so based on you just getting your desire. And I refuse to call that spiritual. Respectfully, bruh. I refuse to call that spiritual.
Respectfully.
So I conclude my rant on why astrology is not spiritual.
Well said. Well said.
I feel like I'm going to say a lot.
Darn it, well said.
I feel like I'm going to say a lot on the MBTI. This is
I
astrology
just
thing.
don't even know how people compare them. Honestly, I don't understand it.
Hold on. Because
we're totally gonna get there.
No, okay.
Before I get to that,
Don't
I
rush.
just want let's just have been talking for a while, Shane. As a Christian, and I'm not backing this, y'all. I'm not a Christian. I would call myself spiritual. As a Christian, what are the distinct problems that you have with astrology?
Well, I think you named a lot of them. I think it puts a lot of people in the position to play God, which I would argue is almost like hedonist.
Blasphemous. Tell them.
Well, no, I understand why people do it. My issue comes with a lot of the. My issue necessarily isn't with. My issue with a lot of people who partake in astrology have this view that somehow it is less organized yet more authoritative. And not that you guys think it's authoritative, of any like actual objective truth or whatever. But when I talk to people who partake in astrology, they're so very carefree, and yet they believe in these beliefs like they're objective truths, but then don't want to claim them as objective truths and just say, I'm a free caring spirit. And it leaves a lot of, it really does come off as the sense of, I'm doing this solely for me. Like, and that's not bad. Do things for yourself. Care for yourself. Love yourself. I think those things are important. But if your basis for loving yourself, or if if your basis for loving yourself is the stars or the universe or beyond that, more just because I read this is what my type is like, if it's excusing in that context, then it's I don't even know if that's really loving yourself. I feel like it's loving an archetype of yourself that you've put yourself in. I don't even know if archetype's the right word for that. But
It's
within
loving your
relation-
self-image.
yeah, it's not even really, yeah, exactly. It's loving your self-image. And I think that's a big difference for me as like a Christian. Is I feel like I'm truly loving myself is something I openly struggle with, that I feel like I'm called to in my faith to do. But I don't think astrology sets anybody up for that. I think it's people just blindly saying they do because they're in love with their self-image more than they're actually in love with themselves. I can't tell you how many times I see uh astrology is permissive. It's permissive of action. Whereas my faith, I don't perceive to be permissive. I perceive Christians to be permissive of other Christians. Oh, he's probably not a true Christian, or like we do that. That's a real thing that the church battles. But astrology kids will let other astrology kids, like, uh you will shun whole relationships with people and foundations based on the day of their birth. Like, that's just, like, they didn't choose that. That's, like, that's, I don't perceive or deem that to be fair. um I can't tell you how many times people have said they don't want to talk to me in specific, just even as friends, because I'm a Scorpio. And
Us Scorpios get so much hate, bro, and for what?
do
Like,
I think we're the most hated.
I don't know about most hated, but like
Who's
I
whenever
feel
hated
like
more?
every sign feels
we
like
get
that.
I feel like every time I hear it, I hear Scorpios.
When
and
I've seen
I hear
Pisces are really
Scorpio,
hated.
I hear, you're egotistical, and I'm like, no. I'm like,
but I don't even say that to like denounce anything of it. I just say more. It is a very, I don't know why. I feel like people use the word spiritual nowadays as this idea of. I feel like it used to mean something good. I feel like the context in which Alan uses it is something I'm way more lenient towards or approving of, personally, than the idea of what I feel like it's used in its modern context. Like I said earlier, I feel like people use the word spiritual just because they have a negative connotation of organized religion. They hate the way the church has been in America. They hate the way people have dictated their lives and stuff like that, and their families have used a religion to be oppressive and dictative to them. And I'm not saying those experiences are valid. They're real things. Their church trauma is a real thing and real problem. But to then say that your organized belief system, not a religious idea, simply because if you identify with it, you now have a problem. Like, because if you call it that, then it's just as bad as the trauma that you have. Like, it's just not consistent, and it lacks consistency. It's all based on what makes me feel good. It's hedonistic, and I think that's why I have a problem with it as a Christian.
Yeah.
Here's my little rant.
I don't like it. I'm not really a fan of it. Okay. You know what, man? Like, I don't really have much more energy for this episode, bro. Astrology just sucks. But let's get into the fucking MBTI.
The
versus
MBTI thing,
astrology.
y'all, you segue into it. I'm gonna go run and grab a water real quick, but segue into it because I have a lot to bring up with you. I think.
Yeah, fine. We could talk about specific things. I don't believe there's much of a correlation. I think that the correlation exists on the foundation that their personality basis. And I know a contention that people who follow astrology have with MBTI is saying, funny enough, because it's like you're both personality things, you both put people in a box. So like personality types put people in a box, and if you say somebody's more logical, then you're saying they're going to be like that forever. And if they're not, and it's like, no, it's not. It's like it's your preset way of seeing the world, and from that you can use that view of the world to develop certain skills. But there is like some degree of preset belief in you. And then there's shit that's so shallow as saying I'm not an introvert and I'm not an extrovert, I'm an ambivert. That is like, if somebody says that, I already attach no acuity to their ability to read human beings. If you say I'm not an like, bro, what direction do you lean in? What way do you?
There's one you definitely lean in.
Yeah, because as an ENTP, I could use my extroverted intuition, which is an extroverted function, But say with extroverted intuition is interested in possibility, different avenues. So I could become fascinated with the ability of adopting an introverted lifestyle. And then from that, I could pivot into being alone more. But saying, are you alone versus do you engage with people as like that being the model for introversion and extroversion, I feel that to be a very shallow way of understanding it. And that itself defends the position of MBTI. First of all, we have to clarify that MBTI is not 16personalities.com. And I'm not like against 16personalities.com, as I know many people in the MBTI community are. But a lot of people, when they hear MBTI, they conflate it with 16 personalities. 16 personalities is just the most famous place for MBTI to be founded, I guess. Like, a lot of people, I'm like, what's your personality type? And not in the same way with like astrology, where they're like, are you an Aries? And if you like, because a lot of times girls will ask me what my sign is, and I'll say, I'm not entertaining this conversation. That's usually the first thing I say. They're just like, I just want to know. Da, da, da. And I'm like, I'm not entertaining it. And they still just push over and over again. And I'm like, I don't even want to entertain the conversation, because I don't think that it's worthwhile for me to have a conversation with somebody about this. I'm not going to change somebody's mind that quickly that has that much incentivization to believe in astrology. To believe in astrology, you have to be hedonistic from what I've seen. And for you to have hedonism rooted that deep in you, you're going to need like a fucking rebirth of yourself in order to get over that. So I'm not going to change your mind with a conversation about it. So I'm not going to sit down and argue with you about why I'm not into it. It's like, if you're into it, fine. And I'm not having the conversation, and they'll push at it. So I don't do that with MBTI. I'm not like, you're going to tell me, da, da, da. I don't do that. But a lot of the time, I'll ask people, what's your personality type? And they say, I'm the protagonist. I'm the debater. I'm the campaigner. That has nothing to do with MBTI. That's the name. Like, that's the nickname that they gave on the website. And each website that you take MBTI test on has different nicknames, dude. It literally has it. Like, I know there's some where ENTP is called the inventor. So it's like, if I ask somebody, are you an MBTI? And they say, oh, I'm the inventor. That's not even what MBTI is. So for you to make this argument, astrology, MBTI is like astrology, why are you so against it? Like, first of all, do you even know what MBTI is? Or are you judging it off the 16 personalities nicknames? Because that's a huge thing. Second of all, then people say, oh, okay, I'm an INFJ, introverted, intuitive, feeling. You know what? Yeah, that makes sense, because I'm introverted, and that's the way that's not what the personality types are. And this is not like the fucking, because they're going to say that the cognitive function stack parallels the astrological birth charts, which it doesn't, because the birth charts has things like you're a sun, so I don't know exactly what it is, but it's like you're a sun, so you aim to be like this, or you're a moon, so like this is like your shadow side or whatever. I don't really know what those things are, but from what I've heard and been ranted to about, that's the basis of what it is. And it's not the same thing, because that, like, when you are a Virgo, the fucking time and place you were born apparently creates your sun chart. When you are an ENTP, you have the same function stack, no matter what, as an ENTP. Okay? So if somebody's an ENTP, they're an ENTP because their function stack is extroverted intuition, introverted thinking, extroverted feeling, introverted sensing, and then the other four shadow functions. And if you don't know what I'm saying right now, when I said all those functions, you don't know what MBTI is. So the only way that you could compare the two is if you don't know what it is. If you just think an ENTP is somebody who's extroverted and intuitive, like, everybody is all of those things, and MBTI actually implements that, which astrology doesn't, by the way. Because like I said, like, everybody's sensitive in a way. Everybody has that spot of them, right? Everybody's serious in a way. Everybody has that spot of them. Astrology, bro, like, oh, dude. I don't like... Okay, anyway, MBTI, like, covers that, right? It's like, oh, the logical part of you, everybody has a logical part. Here's their thinking function and their function stack. right? So it's like, yeah, you're logical, but it's the placement in your function stack that dictates what your propensity is to use your logical function. And if you don't understand that, you can't have the conversation. That's another difference between MBTI and astrology, is that astrology says you're this thing, which is usually a character trait that everybody is and has a propensity for, and nowhere in astrology is it implemented that that is a true fact about human nature. In MBTI, it is implemented. So there you go. And in MBTI, it's not like you're an Aries, but you're not really an Aries because you're a Virgo sun. It's you're an ENTP. Here's your function stack. It might differ to what degree you use a function. You're going to use a function at a certain time in your life. This function is going to play this role in your life, but you are an ENTP. It's all there. You have it. So MBTI is a more thought out system than astrology. Also, MBTI is not infallible. It has flaws, but human beings are complex. We're nowhere close to understanding them, and the best way that we're going to be able to understand them is to say that they have a propensity to be like X. And MBTI is completely based on the foundation of propensity. You're an ENTP, so you have this amount of propensity to be intuitive, you have this amount of propensity to be sensing, so on and so forth. And for each individual, there is, it is individuated, not every ENTP is the same as the other, because there could be ENTPs that are 80% extroverted, or some that are 60% extroverted, or some that are much more logical than they are emotional. Or for me, I'm very close between the two, but I tend towards logic. It's more thought out than astrology, and that's actually the reason why when people debate astrology and MBTI, they even think it's fucking close, because they don't understand what MBTI is, because it's more thought out than they know, and they think it's just letters, or they, even worse, think it's just a fucking nickname, when when we talk about a personality, we are talking about a cognitive function stack, really. You're better off saying cognitive function stack than personality type, because the cognitive function stack is the foundation to a personality type. Not the same thing, bro.
Okay,
That's
so
all I have to say.
You definitely challenged some of my things, but I have two questions for you. What about people who use MBTI? Well, I guess there's people with very little understanding of it who use it. So I think this is how, because I probably, the reason I associate it like that is because I'm still new. For the longest time, you guys would talk about MBTI around me, and I just wouldn't care enough about it. But what about the people who are using MBTI to be like, that's I don't want to talk to censors, or censors are so annoying, and I don't want to deal with censors. I can't hang out with them, or I would never date a censor, or whatever. What do people are using in the same way that people use astrology?
Yeah. I think this is a look, I don't think that I think in astrology we tangibly see that the motivation is relationships more than it is for MBTI. I think MBTI's intentions is to understand an individual, and I think astrology's intentions, if you read the sort of descriptions of the signs and the traits, is based on somebody's correspondence to you. So I think in MBTI, that's less of a problem that will show up. I think it's not built off the same intention and desire. And but I do think that's a problem. And I think that there's people that will be generally against people. But I don't know if that's something that's specific to MBTI. Because say somebody is a conservative. But people, I'm not going to date a conservative. It's like, at this point, are we criticizing anybody who is against somebody because they're a thing? Like, are we criticizing anybody who's against something because they're a label? Like, why specifically in MBTI is that a bad thing to do? And I think it is a bad thing to do, but I think for you to make that argument, it takes some effort to create that argument. And I also think this is less prominent of a problem in the MBTI community.
You know what? That's fair. I don't got a disagreement. Max, you?
I don't think that they should be compared. Like, I don't think astrology and MBTI are like anything similar. Like, yeah,
that's a good point. They're so far off that it's not even like.
Yeah, they're literally just archetypes, and like that's the only like comparability in my opinion. Like that's the only like way you can compare them.
No, that's
That's
fair.
really all I have to say. Like I just feel like it's
I think because
silly.
I was starting to get into it, I was starting to like treat it like that. Like, I was starting to talk about in my other friend group. I was starting to talk about things that like ENFPs do, and I had told you about this, Alan, where I had said a person I know um, freaked out over freaked out because their one of their friends had questioned something that they an ENFP. Uh, an INTP questioned something close to their identity, and the ENFP, or that they claimed as an identity, the ENFP freaked out. And as listening to that, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is such an ENFP thing to do. And I heard myself say that, and I'm like, I sound like every astrology person ever being like, oh my gosh, you're such a Scorpio.
Yeah.
And so I think in those are the aspects in which I find them similar. But as philosophies of themselves, no. Because I do think MBTI almost, I think the more you cognitively understand MBTI, I would argue even just understanding it more pushes people to want to be better, whereas astrology doesn't even have that implication at all. Not that MBTI has to have it, but I would argue it has more of the incentive than astrology ever will.
Yeah, and let's not even like. First of all, the foundations themselves are different, but let's also talk about like how the foundations were intended. The foundation of astrology was inspired by mysticism, and its arguments. The argument that astrology is making is way more grandiose than the argument that MBTI is making. MBTI is making the argument that there are these 16 personality types that all have a cognitive function stack, and every human being has a cognitive function stack and has a directional flow in how they in their personality, and they use all of these functions to differing degrees. And astrology is because you were born on June 2nd at this time and place, you're going to have this trait. And what is like the bestowing upon that? The indication is like some fucking like universal thing, right? It's less of a biological argument and more of some like universal. There's this almighty power. All of these things are connected, and that's why people born on this place and thing are destined to have like this sort of personality type. Like it's way more of a stark argument to make. So that's another reason why it's incomparable.
Yeah, no, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, there's I can't really say much more because it just feels like they don't really have a leg to stand on, bro. But
Any astrology people, man, comment below if you got some counter arguments, man. We I don't know if we really want to hear them, but yeah, we'd be willing to.
I'd love for them to, but I know it's just going to be shit like, I can't believe that you said that I'm da-da-da because I'm not da-da-da. Like, it's just going to be like, they're so attached to it, bro. Like, it's whatever. Like,
Self-image.
I welcome the feedback. I'm not going to engage with any of the feedback because I don't think I'm going to change your mind. It's going to take an individual process you're going to have your mind changed. And that's going to take a long time. It's going to take a lot of energy, and I'm not going to be the one to extend the energy because I got my own problems, and I'm working on those right now. Anyways, we have one more thing, one more little segment. We're going to go over it really quick. Let's see this. I have in front of me general traits of signs. And we're going to say our sign. We're going to talk about the traits of that sign. And we're going to say if that's true for our specific sign. What we'll do is we will personally say it's true. And then, like the other two people will say if that's true from their perspective. We'll have like a peanut gallery thing. First of all, let's talk about some people who aren't here. What I tried to pull for all of these is like the 10 traits of each sign. And okay, yeah. And I just got some articles in front of me. We're just going to go hard with it. For Mia, who is not here today, she is a Capricorn. So we'll all say if these are accurate for Mia. And I think, honestly, my argument is going to be all of these, or at least most of these, are going to be accurate for everybody because this is not a hard argument to make. I could also make the argument in the other direction. Okay, so Mia is a Capricorn, and it says Capricorns are ambitious. Peanut Gallery, is Mia ambitious?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, well, and like it's sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's like a special amount of ambition. Like her goals are like, I want to work and I want to complete school. So, how much does that really say about somebody? They have goals, okay? I mean, everybody usually has a goal. Most people have a goal. A persistent. I don't think any of us could say if Mia's persistent or not. I don't have any like experience from which I could say she's yeah. A realistic. I would definitely say Mia is not realistic. I would say Mia is very idealistic in the way that she sees the world.
Yeah. But that's just like an INFP thing.
Yeah, sensitive. Everybody's sensitive, bro. I already said this earlier. Everybody you can make the argument is sensitive. So yes, Mia's sensitive. Practical. I don't think Mia's practical. No. I think she is in certain areas, but she's showed a lot of impracticality.
These are very vague. These are just terms.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Disciplined. Definitely not.
Yeah.
Anybody, she quit the habit thing on 3 days.
Yeah.
Right. And then we're going to talk about the sign of one more person who's not here today. We're gonna talk about Creek.
Uh-oh.
His sign.
Uh-oh.
Creek is a Virgo.
Oh, no.
And we're going to talk about their traits. Okay. Hardworking.
No. He can't even fucking put out a
Definitely
damn
not.
song.
Creative.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a creative.
He's
Creek's
extremely
definitely
creative.
creative. Reliable. Hell no.
No.
Definitely not. Patient. Yeah, I would say Creek's
Yeah.
a patient guy.
Yeah.
Kind. This is
Yeah.
something you could apply this to most people, but yeah, he's kind. Okay. Now here's some negative traits. Those are all positive ones.
Creek.
Here's some negative traits of Creek. He's critical. I don't think so. I don't see Creek as a very critical guy. Like he has
He's probably the
criticism.
least critical person I know. Every time we would play our little playlist game,
He's always like-
he would give like a harsh stance and then always replace it with like a. But it's not bad, you know. I like it.
He's a very open person.
It's not bad. It just wasn't for me. Like he's not critical at all.
All the people that are into astrology too are going to be like, oh well, he could still be a Virgo because in his sunshine. No, I don't give a fuck, bro. Stubborn. No, he's not really a stubborn guy. Overthinking. Yes,
Yeah.
but I hate that term so much. I think most people underthink, bro. So like, it's a good problem to have if you overthink. Like, it's a good fucking problem. Like, I get it comes with its problems, but like, it's a good problem to have. Picky.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think he is. It depends. Depends. Like that's vague.
he is with his art.
I think he
Yeah,
is with
say
his
the
art and what
argument
he
I was
like.
gonna make,
I,
yeah.
I would say he is with art in all aspects. Every like not just his art that he creates, with the art he engages with. He's probably very picky. Like I remember when I showed him that he hates EDM. I know that he doesn't like electronic music, and he's extreme. Like every time I tried showing him, he's like, "No, it's just not for me." Like he was super picky about it, but he wasn't critical. So I don't know.
And then the last negative trait is uptight.
No.
No.
Oh no, okay. And we have two people here who are the same sign. Shane
Okay.
and Max are both Scorpios.
Scorpio
You- you-
gang.
you're-
Woo! Okay, so right in front of
Overhated.
me-
Scorpio.
Overhated and underdated. I'm joking.
right in front of me, I have your positive and negative traits.
Let's do
So
it.
you guys can say if it's true for y'all. I'll say we'll do it. Okay. It says you guys are determined.
No. Well,
Oh.
Max, if you and me are determined, the one thing we're determined to do is fail.
yeah.
So it says you're brave.
No. Can be at times.
I wouldn't. I don't know. No.
No, definitely not. Honest.
Yeah.
You guys are honest. Like you guys don't enjoy lying. You guys are avoidant, evasive,
Yeah.
ambitious. For Shane, I would say yes. I wouldn't say so for Max.
No.
You agree with that, Shane? Would you call yourself an ambitious person?
Yeah, I would.
Okay. Let's get to your negative traits. Okay. It says you guys are jealous.
Yeah, I have the potential
Yeah.
to be. Yeah.
Actually, there was one that I read over for the positive ones, which is so funny because we used it as like a meme earlier of like such a stupid thing to call somebody, but it says loyal. A positive sign, by the way.
Yeah.
Man, no. It says you guys, back to negative traits, it says you guys are secretive.
Can be.
No.
Can be.
I wanna read the description for this. It's kind of funny. Scorpios never show their cards. They are incredibly honest, but they don't like to display any vulnerability, especially with people they're unsure
I
about.
don't
They
identify
tend
with
to
that at all.
Yeah, I would.
they tend to
That's
keep their
definitely
feelings to
yeah.
themselves as well as their
No.
plans. So when it's time to win the chess match of life, Scorpios have a leg up.
We
No,
do.
that's cap. That's cap.
As are resentful.
I can be.
Can be, but not always. No.
No, this is definitely true for Max. It says you guys are controlling.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm a real controlling guy.
And stubborn.
Yeah,
guys are
I can be
stubborn.
stubborn.
I can be stubborn. Yeah.
Okay. There's like brief descriptions of how you guys are in friendships and relationships. Do you guys want me to read that? Or should we just skip it?
Sure. You can just
Just
skip
up
over
to you
it.
would. We can skip it. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Here's what this is something I want to read. This is advice for you guys. Okay, this says advice for a Scorpio. So I want you guys to pay attention because you guys need this.
Yeah. Let's hear it.
Number one, this is so crazy. It sounds like fucking. It already has that touch of somebody who's cynical about their past relationships not working out. In the wording, like in the verbiage of the fucking paragraph here. Nobody likes to be controlled all the time. Learn to take control in areas where you can, like at work. But focus on loosening the rein in your relationships. Open up. Learn from others instead of sticking to your ways.
Okay.
Okay.
I will do that.
I'll
Number
try.
two. Number two. There's 5 pieces of advice here. Don't be afraid of your emotions. Expressing emotional vulnerability can be scary, but you're an emotionally intense person, and communicating your feelings clearly with the people in your life will help you connect with them. I feel like that's not a problem either of you guys have, especially with Max, bro. Especially with that. This is why we've spent hours listening to Max and his fucking problems, bro. So I don't think Max has a problem with that.
No.
Surround yourself with easygoing people who have a good sense of humor. I'm not even reading that one. It sounds
don't
like a
like
fucking
that.
shitty piece of advice.
Yeah. Surround yourself by easygoing people that are not going to challenge you whatsoever, and just yeah, that's a good idea.
Number 4, work on forgiveness. This makes you guys like actually sound toxic. Work on forgiveness. You really
well,
connect with
overhated.
others. We know it hurts when someone causes you harm or distress. Learn to let go of small infractions. This will help you maintain relationships and teach you not to be so hard on yourself. And the last one, and this definitely applies to Max, you cocky fucking prick. Celebrate your successes, but don't brag. Depend on a few key people in your life to share your success and hold them close. They should be the people with whom you have practiced not feeling every competitive or not feeling competitive or resentful toward. Very shitty advice.
It's very poor advice. It's not. It's not. I don't think it's true to me at all.
Okay. Let me skim over this real quick. Yeah, I feel like I can make the argument for all of these traits, so I'm gonna go ahead and say I have all of these within me. So that's what I think of all these. I just skimmed over them. I would say like they're all true in an area of my life. And that's that. So I'll have the peanut gallery react. You know, I am a Cancer, and we're going to talk about some positive traits of
I know
Cancers.
so
And you
many
guys can say if it's
Cancers.
true. Number 1, loyal. I'm a loyal guy.
Yeah, I would say so.
You're loyal.
Number 2, protective.
Of who?
I'm protective. It says I can be overbearing at times because I'm so protective.
No. God no.
Intuitive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Number 4, caring.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, here are the negative traits. It says overly sensitive.
No.
Mm,
No.
No.
God no.
Number 2, moody.
I've seen you have like. I mean, everybody can be moody. Like have like I don't know. I mean, I've never seen you being like super.
I would
moody,
never
no.
say he's moody though. There's been times where he's been pissed, but it's like
Yeah.
his piss is like it goes away quick. Like he's
Yeah,
he's
it's
better
not
at
like-
explaining it than he is actually like sitting within the aspect of the emotion. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't even call you moody.
Yeah, I would say at this point in my life, I have like very sustained emotional states. So like after my breakup, I was upset a long time. Before my breakup, I was in a really like good mood for a long time. I usually don't just like stay upset for like a week or so if I'm gonna be upset. It's usually like it carried out. I'm usually like in the energy. There's something distinct happening to me that's keeping me in there. Anyways, is this the last one? Okay, yeah. The last negative trait of Cancers. It says we're vindictive.
No.
Nah, yeah, I wouldn't say that at all.
Yeah, I mean, pretty pretty lame way to end the podcast, but what can I say? Astrology's lame. Astrology sucks. I have no other things to say. Do you guys have anything else you guys want to close with?
Fuck astrology. It sucks.
Get out of your hedonism and do better.
Yeah, for real. You're not spiritual.
Do better.
Do better.
Episode
We-
9 is going to be on codependency. We're out of here.
Peace.